Hi, welcome. James, what number is this? Dinim what, 6?
6.
Welcome to Dinim 6. In typical Rabbi David Katz fashion and style, right around this time, we start bursting things open, and then you have a scenario where you're on one verse in Mishlei for 2 years. You guys follow what I'm saying? The discussion that we've been on for 2 weeks. Today's the third week, which means there'll be at least 3 parts, and there's going to be a lot more. Meat. I gave a Parsha class on meat a couple years ago. I forget exactly what I was on about, but how meat really is everything, right? I mean, aren't you people just meat? Isn't everything just kind of meat? In fact, we say in the Birkat HaMazon, grace after meals, my favorite prayer of all time. It says very clearly, where is it? How many you guys know what grace after meals is, right? Everyone type 1 on this one. But do you actually know what the prayer is about? How many of you actually know what the grace after meals is about? I mean, really about. Anyone want to give me a 1 or 2 here? 2s, all 2s. You should all be typing 2s. Every Jew on the planet should be typing 2s. Because they just don't get into it. So I'm going to read you accurately in the language, but my take is on the first word. You don't have to go by my take on the first word, but after we get launched, then it's word for word. So when it's blessed are you, God, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, you know how we say Bereshit in the Torah? It's just like Bereshit is its own thing. Genesis in the beginning, and then the verse doesn't really require Bereshit. They say the whole Torah is encapsulated in Bereshit. So I'm saying, say Baruch, which just is going to say blessed. You're acknowledging blessed kite, right? Just blessed. No need for further explanation. Just blessed. How did you have the meal and the food on the table? Blessed. Now, Atah, you, we're saying, where did the blessing come from? Where did all this come from? Oh, you are God. Cop that? Right, we're acknowledging you are God. I get it. Okay, it's not from me. You are God, our God, King of the world. He nourishes the entire world with his goodness, in grace, in kindness, and in mercy. He gives bread to every basar, to all meat. See that? For his kindness is eternal, and with his great goodness, which is always, there is no lack for us, and we will never lack sustenance forever and ever, for the sake of his great name. For he is a God of sustenance and livelihood, to better everything and to prepare everything through sustenance to all of his creations that he created. Blessed, again, blessed, you are God, sustainer of everything. Now, doesn't that make a difference? Is that not a prayer that you want to say? This is the prayer that you want to say. The whole creation is basar. You people are just meat, right? You're just meat, and God created you that way. And God says, "Don't worry, I'm gonna take care of the meat." Right? It's like an ultra spirituality and physicality. So you can really learn from the meat genre of Torah, kind of one take of all of existence. I gave a class on it, and on YouTube you can find it. So now we're discussing meat, and we're seeing that obviously meat is one of the 7 Noahide laws, and we're combining it with Dinim, and it opens up everything because from meat, the Akam, what do we call our friend again? What was his name? Joe Akam, or what was his name?
Joe Akam, I believe.
Joe Akam. Joe Akam can elevate into what was our game? Bob the Gare? Is that who it was? Johnny Akam. Yeah, Johnny Akam And who was the ger? Who was the ger? Was Bob the ger?
I've listened to that class twice, and I don't remember now.
Johnny Ockham. I like that, though. Johnny Ockham and Bob the ger. All right, so Johnny Ockham can elevate to Bob the ger. And remember, we don't really care if Bob's a ger or not. It doesn't matter. We're not pushing books. We're not making statuses. And we're not making friends. Ger is just a contrast that is used to say what's going on with the Jews, what's going on with the Johnny Ockham, and everything in between. I mean, ger is just, as far as Dinim are concerned, I don't know, just, a man and his staff. I mean, what do you want? It's a tool. So with me, Johnny Ockham can upgrade to ger for the sake of whatever. Again, we're not getting personal. I don't care why you're going kosher or not. It doesn't matter. It just matters that Johnny Ockham decided to do it. And you can't do it without ger. That's just how God wrote the Torah. Despite the fact what people want to say about Rabbi Katz's opinions, or lack thereof. So once we're already getting into 7 + 1 = ger, more mitzvahs, then the principle of ger comes in here, and it's going to weigh heavily on all the other Noahide laws. So this sugya of of meat is really, I think, the mother lode. In fact, I'm going to read you a work from a rabbi who actually called on the phone today and talked to him. He's a nice guy. He has sourced what I've been teaching for 5 years in one location. Actually, I called this guy on the phone today and talked to him. It was pretty cool. The point is that our ger world, for those interested, you can say is really, Rabbi Katz, why are you so convinced that there's this righteous non-Jew 7 + 1 upgrade and from Johnny Ockham? The answer is because he exists. It's a reality. And in his indigenous location, our natural coordinate is meat. That's where you find his halachic world, or his world in din. It's a nice way of saying, why would I ever want to be a ger? Right? I'm perfectly happy being Johnny. Why do you insist on calling me, an upgrade to ger? I'm not into labels, Rabbi Katz. I'm not into status. I'm not even into you. Why are you determined to sell me your book and call me a ger? And the answer is because you might eat at Rabbi Moshe's house, and if you do and you eat that meat, you are a ger. By definition, because that's how you did not eat the limb of a living animal. So I don't really care what you think and what your opinions are. You're a ger if you do the upgrade of meat. So again, ger is not, it's not an opinion or a bias. This is kind of a reality. And there is a reality that Johnny Ockham, because of the way God created the world, he likes to have barbecues with his friends, the Jews. And in that situation, you're going to find yourself in ger territory. If you don't want to be Moshe's Shabbos goy, you're probably being a ger now. And why don't you want to be a Shabbos goy? Because you know it's wrong. And he knows it's wrong. And all it means is you're out of klippah and you're getting holy. And hopefully the Jew's getting holy with you. And you know that it's not right. It's a leniency that exists rabbinically, but it's not one meant to be abused just because you can. I can break Shabbos every week. I can say, oh, my leg hurts. I need to turn the lights on. Oh, my leg hurts. Okay, technically, Based In can't kill me for that. But you're only fooling yourself. The more you live an honest lifestyle, you will realize that you do ger stuff. Not because I said so, because God said so. And if you say not so, then you're saying that you're Johnny Ockham, and you're still labeling yourself. Stop labeling yourself. Just do what you got to do. If you want a kosher hamburger, then eat a kosher hamburger. But don't say you can't or you shouldn't because you don't want to be called ger. You're not called ger. The Torah has contrast in chachma, wisdom, understanding, using ger Torah. We've been down this road. We need to start getting that message. Now, I called a friend of mine, as I told you last week, and he liked this idea we did last time, but he said, it's a big chiddush, and it is a big chiddush, and I definitely bit off more than I could chew, pun intended, because this thing is massive. Really, really, really massive. And with that, I wanted to check my work, as I always do, and I typed in the dictum of this phrase we said, that which is allowed for a Jew is also allowed for John Yaakov. You guys remember that? That was like the trigger of this whole thing. Remember that? So I decided to check it out against 50,000 books, and I came across this word called Birkas Pinchas, a guy that lives in Jerusalem. Again, I talked to him on the phone today. Really cool guy. God willing, I'm going to meet him on Wednesday. So I'm going to read you what he wrote. I'm going to go kind of fast. So if I skip or skim some of this, it's just because it's not pertinent for our discussion. And when I get to the part that is pertinent, you'll know why. Again, I'm not trying to make everything clear. So pick up what you can. When I really want you to get it, I'm going to make you get it. Hine but Tosfos, it says in Tosfos, you guys remember our Sanhedrin 74b with Naaman? So he's picking it up right over there. Remember we said about a Noahide that's commanded and one that's not commanded? All right, so he's picking that up. Ben Noach commanded on Kiddush Hashem. And he says there's a challenge on this that the Torah says, V'chai behim. In Vayikra, there's, after our blood verses, there's a couple of verses and that end with, I forget how it says, like and man, and Adam, blah, 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 and you will live in the law. Now, how many of you have ever heard of a non-Jew who learns Torah as like a Kohen Gadol? All right, everybody. Because of the award-winning best-selling book, Soul Mazel, available on Amazon.com. There's a couple different versions of that statement. Two of them I'm going to tell you right now. One I'm going to say for surprise because it's the essence of this. One says Akum, and another one says Nachri. Is there a difference, practically speaking, Talmudically, of Akum and Nachri? And I mean practically. I mean, I'm not practically, like not in Rav Soloveitchik work, real general. There's no difference. Unless you're going to get hardcore heavy duty, you can be synonymous with Nachri and Akum. Nachri is biblical, Akum is Talmudic. Kind of like saying a watch or a wristwatch, a car and an automobile. Kind of like that. So he's going to say, the Noahide commanded, what about this thing about the Kohen Gadol? Behem, live with them. And the law is talking about Israel. And if so, mashma de goy mechoyev lamaser nafsho. So the Kiddush Hashem is for a Jew. And the goy, again, is a goy different than Nachri or Akum? Is goy different than Nachri or Akum? No. No. All the same thing here, for all intents and purposes. For all intents and purposes. Now, when we get into the heavy-duty stuff, you bet your bottom dollar there's a difference. But we don't need to get into that right now. So we're saying that it sounds like a goy, because the Kohen Gadol bit, he should give his life. Remember, this has nothing to do with our discussion. This is just a build-up to what I want to tell you. It's just interesting, so follow along. Because we've done it before. The answer is that perhaps you will live in them. When I say you will live in them, it's the quote of the verse, V'chai b'hem, Istri rak delo nilmar megimel averish yehareg ve'eliyavur. He's just getting into the details of dying Kiddush Hashem. It's not for us. Aval misvara yadinan delo yamasar nafsho. Hina Isa b'psachim ki hahu da'asa the kami the Rabba Amar le Mari Durai Amar li Zil Kad le Lefanai Ila le Katlina lecha Amar le lik tuch velo tik tul my chazi the dema the yadecha soimek tfei dilma dama. Don't worry, there's a point to this. The hu gavra soimek tfei al karcha. Ksav Rashi zal madvar mamrim my chazit kaloimer klum the asa yishul al kach Elohim mibnei sha'asa yodea she'im mitzvah oimedes bifnei pikuach nefesh v'savrata sha'af zo tidka mibnei pikuach nafshecha ein zeh doime l'shar averes v'b'chum makom yesh kan ivu nefesh v'atoyra lo hater lidchot es a mitzvah Elohim mibnei chayvus nafsho shel Yisrael. Okay, that whole bit was getting into dying, martyrdom, whether or not it applies to the non-Jew and the Jew. Now is where we're going to get into our bit, okay? And he was applying the law of the Kohen Gadol Goy learning Torah bit. Midvariv mashma, the v'chai behem b'Yisrael hu d'ksiv. So remember when I say and you will live in them, we're talking about the Kohen Gadol living by the law for non-Jew and Jew. We thought it was only for Israel, a Jew. V'goy itzterich l'maser nafsho b'kol avera imcham yedua klal. Okay, so yitzterich l'maser nafsho b'kol avera. I would say then a goy has to give his life for everything. Like anytime you threaten to make him sin, he has to give his life. Now this is not factual. This is theoretical. He's not trying to be factual. He's building up to something. So keep your mind loose. However, it's known, the general rule, the Leiki Midi the Yisrael Shari La'ovid Koichivi Masr. That's where we're going to get focused on us. That there's nothing that a Jew is allowed to do and an akum is forbidden to do. That's the general rule. Remember I told you I looked up that law? That's the law I looked up, and that's how I found this. However, Tosfos, the Sanhedrin, says that there's an argument of whether or not that's true. Now we're getting really into our piece here. Again, I only brought up the beginning of this because we did the piece about Naaman. Maybe one day we can go back and connect the dots, but you see it's all one thing. You see how it's all one thing? The things that we did and we're doing, it's all one world. Ulefize nidin lidchot rayazo deba'acha shel hotar b'Yisrael la'avor v'lo lahareg hu adin gam b'goy. And according to this, there is to remove this proof that since that it is a Jew is allowed to sin, not really sin, he's just allowed to transgress over the things like we're talking about, the limb of a living animal type things. V'lo laharig, and he's not put to death. Hu adin gam b'goy, then you'd have to say the goy also. However, the ikar adin, ikar tam adin, hu mibnei kayevis nefesh ha-Yisrael. Gam Rashi ksav ve'ein zed doime l'shar veiris tzarich be'iyam kavanaso. All right. Now, I am aware of the fact that this doesn't make sense. Now's where we start for real. He's introducing the principle about the Jew has a permission. The Goy has the permission. We talked about the Kohen Gadol stuff. He's building an argument, and he puts it all together. Pay attention. Hine b'shas moga letzaino sham ayin bava kama. In Bava Kama, we have a law. Rabbi Meir says, where do we know that even a Nachri who learns Torah is like a Kohen Gadol? All right, now you with me on point? Talmud Loimer, which is to say that you will perform them, the man, and live with them. So he did a circular argument. He's basing his arguments on our Naaman stuff the last week's stuff, the Kiddush Hashem, all that stuff on this principle of the Kohen Gadol. Now he's going to finally ask on the Kohen Gadol thing, okay? He took it as a given that the non-Jew was part of Torah. So he said, does a non-Jew give his life? Does a non-Jew have a permission slip like a Jew? And those were things that we discussed in the previous classes. Now he's going to ask, wait a minute. What is this deal about the non-Jew learning Torah and being like a Kohen Gadol? You hear the question? I mean, we took it as a given. Okay, yeah, the non-Jew is allowed. He's here and he's awesome. Well, wait a minute. Why? He's asking the first question he should have been asking. Why? That is to say, v'chai b'hem, you'll live through the laws, and we say that that's the non-Jew learns Torah like a Kohen Gadol, type 1. And this is on the Goyim. So, Mamish Goyim, I guess what? They're like Jews? They're learning Torah? I mean, what is this? And it's not like Tosfos. The Tosfos commentary says something different. Ach, I am but Tosfos. Ella ha'adam the din zed the Rebbe Merhu the lo kadas Rashbi v'imkin shema yish leimar the Tosfos vir le Rashbi the vachi be'im v'lo yamar al goy o shekusha sobas in hedrin aliba the Rashbi amnam ayin Rashi shekasav Rebbe Mer leis le atem kroyin adam v'lo od kain v'im kain Rebbe Mer v'chai be'im nemar gam goy. It's a long-winded way of saying the goy. Now it's getting better and better. Watch. However, now's where it's really good. This is why I printed out this thing. All this stuff I'm telling you is only because we've done it before in no particular order. Okay? Now's where the part that I printed this out. I saw in Bava Kama, this is the guy that I called today, in a commentary called Yafa Inayim that wrote in the name of the Midrash. It comes from the Midrash Tanchuma. It's a type of Midrash. Nachri Hamizgayer. Remember I told you there's 3 versions of the story? An Akam that learns Torah, a Nachri that learns Torah, and I said there's a 3rd version, type 1. 3rd version, type 1. What's the 3rd version? A ger that learns Torah is like a Kohen Gadol. How do you like them apples? And the rabbis learn that midrash as a din. You caught that, James Rogers? That is actually a din. Din. It's not just some goofy midrash. It's really a reality. So there, along with that midrash, it says a nachri hamizgayer, a nachri who becomes ger. Sound familiar, folks?
Slightly.
That's right. In the Midrash Hagerim, that on them there's a din that if they delve in Torah, behold, they are like a Kohen Gadol. However, Goyim lo, not Goyim. You see that? It took me 5 years to prove this. This guy did it in one piece. Where were you 5 years ago? I'm going to be meeting him on Wednesday. Thank God. And if so, and you will live through the laws. Lo kai al nachrim. It says the nachrim aren't living on the laws. Ella agerim. It's the gerim that choose to live through the laws and are compared to the Kohen Gadol. And it's the nachri who becomes ger. How cool is that? Type 1 if you think that's pretty cool. According to this satisfies our challenges, that in truth, it solves Tosfos' question. I mean, you could kind of hear with the whole Naaman stuff, there was all those questions, right? Is it the goy? Is the goy have a permission slip? Da-da-da-da-da. The answer, as I've always been saying, ger. That the Ketzad Shevet Torah so shall goy Torah's Kohen Gadol. How is it we consider the Torah of goy like a Torah of Kohen Gadol? Behold, Magi Dvarim LiYaakov. We say his words to Yaakov. The answer, we're talking in the Shevet Mitzvahs of him, and thus the Gemara answers as such. They can learn the 7 mitzvahs. However, according to the Midrash, Klal lo mayri b'Torah so shel goy, we're not talking about a goy. Thank you. Ella, rather, the ger. The ger. Then it's like the Kohen Gadol. However, it appears in the words of the Gemara and Tosfos that the goy mamish, it says the din, the hari, goy and gadol. Right? It uses the word the goy, but what the Midrash Tanchuma says it's the ger, and we're saying it's a nachri that becomes ger. Okay, that's what I printed out. Is that pretty nice? Isn't that pretty nice? The goy leaves and embraces Torah. Yeah, the goy becomes ger. So we had last week with Rabbi Trachman, my friend, and he was not convinced on the idea only because it's a massive chiddush, and we see my new friend, what's his name? I forget his name. The book is called Birkas Pinchas. His name is Shimon Pinchas. That's his name, Shimon Pinchas. He brings Midrash Tanchuma, which shows it's ger, and it's in connection to our piece on the meat, right, about how to elevate. So the theory is no longer theory. It's correct. And again, what was the process? We looked up the principle. The principle was in meat. That which is allowed to a Jew is allowed to the non-Jew, Johnny Occam. But Johnny Occam lives through the Torah, and that is ger by definition, and he leaves the goy behind. Now, with Naaman, it's exactly as we said a couple weeks ago, right? Naaman sanctifies his life as ger. Johnny Occam wouldn't. Do you see how last week's class, the principle, ties together everything we've done so far? Ger Torah, goy Torah, meat Torah, Naaman, sanctifying your life, everything. You see, it's one world. We are in ger is one world, and the principle of ger is brought down in the meat, and the meat goes into Shabbos and learning Torah, because those are always together. And as we know, the ger has that ability. So we're really discovering the world of the ger, available at Amazon.com, from a halachic din standpoint. And as I've always said, the halachic din standpoint is you are not a ger. Ger is not a status. I don't know if there's a word for what it is. You guys have an idea what the word would be? I don't know what the word is. It's like a contrast, another dimension. I don't know. Jacques, what do you think? Guys, Justin, B, what do you got? Loretta, 1R, you always got good stuff to say. How would you describe this? I mean, this is cutting edge. The Torah uses ger to make a three-dimensional model to show dynamic qualities of life, of how to operate according to the Torah, where you're at, when you're at, how you're at, who you're at, all those different questions. Yeah, it really does. It really does. I mean, I'm sorry to tell you, you cannot have 7 laws of Noah without ger. You just don't. You straight up don't. Yeah, it's right. It's depth. You're right. That's right. Ger is the depth perception to an application to the 7 laws of Noah. Now do you see why I'm frustrated about those that don't get ger? You're literally denying the whole Torah if you don't go ger. You just are. You don't get laws of the Occam. You don't. I mean, I might as well just cut your right foot off because it's inconvenient. You know, I'm always tripping over my right foot. All right, cut it off. Who needs a right foot? Just cut it off. You don't need a right foot. Okay, so that's where I was a couple of days ago, and I knew that we were going to do the class on that, and I thought that would be enough. Everyone that lives Torah were ger at one time or another. Again, that's assuming ger is a status. It's not a status. It's simply a dimension or space to travel through. You cannot live without ger. It's a dimension of existence. If it's like saying, if you ever had a hamburger at a Jewish person's house, you were a ger for that time. If you were ever at a Jew's house that made kiddush, you were a ger. I wouldn't call it formula. I don't know. I don't really think it's safe to call it anything. What it is a dimension or limit in Torah, and all dinim or law has qualities of ger in it. I would say, look, do men have testosterone?
Yes.
Do women have testosterone?
Yes.
So women are men.
No. The president would say different, but
but we see that women have to have testosterone to exist, right? So you don't call it, she's in her man level of testosterone. It's just an element usually associated with men, and it's in the creation, right? It's in the creation. There's no other way to put it. It's just you cannot have akum law without ger. You wouldn't even know it. You wouldn't. How about this? You guys know graphing in calculators, right? Let me see if I can brush up on my high school algebra. Ready? See if I get this right. Does every parabola have a point? Can you make a parabola without a point? No, you can't. So there's no such thing as the status of a point. You can't make, every 2 dimensions has to go from 1 dimension. I mean, there's just dimensions in dimension. Ger is a dimension. You never learned about Naaman and the sanctifying God if you didn't have ger there to tell you. You didn't know about the blood if you didn't have ger. Akum's not written in the Torah. So we're talking about ingredients. That's the word I want to use. Ingredient. That's the word. Ger is spice and ingredient. So when the Torah wants to make a law for anybody, ger is part of the ingredient. Because as much as one may remain Johnny Akum, another one will go to Bob the Ger. I wouldn't say that. That says the Ger's better than the Akum. Maybe you don't want to have a hamburger at my house. It's just not comparable. It's too insignificant to compare. That's like saying that I'm better than you because I have a green shirt. It's not enough for a reason to say I'm on a better level than somebody. Ger is so small and so simple and so subtle, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter by itself. It's only an agency to work with all the other agencies and all the other dimensions. And it's vital. It's a vital organ. You can't live without it. I wouldn't say I was getting to yeah, okay. You have to have salt. Right? Everything has salt. Even a pinch of salt. You can't make anything without salt. But I would try to refrain from making it sound like it's important, because that's what people are fighting against, and it's not important. What's important is you and the choice that you're going to make in your relationship with God. And the skeptics would say, oh, I don't want a status or label on me. Thanks, Rabbi Katz. Well, thank you. Rabbi Katz never gave you a status or label. Rabbi Katz is saying you're a person and you have a name and your name is prophetic and you have a relationship with God. But if you don't understand the Torah wisdom of who you are, just from a wisdom perspective, then you're in trouble. Like, I don't believe this stuff today about gender-neutral babies. There's no such thing. Okay? There are boys and there are girls. I don't care which way you're going to go when you get older, but don't say that this kid isn't what he is. So you're either born on this side of the fence or that side. You're either born a Jew or you're not born a Jew. It has nothing to do with the label. We just need to know where you're going to get to when God gives you choices in this world to where you're going to go. And you can go where you want to go. You want to eat gefilte fish all day? Gesundte hay. Convert. Have fun. You want to not eat gefilte fish all day? Gesundte hay. Have fun. But you got to know where you're going. That's like saying, hey, which way do you go? Left. Why not right? I'm always right. Okay, but now it's left. How dare you say it's left? It's right. I'm always right. See what I'm saying? You don't take ownership over right, or I'm this or I'm that. It has nothing to do with it. I like to give always the example. In England, my brother gave me directions to the subway, and I had to walk. And he said, "Go out of the house and turn right." So I'm like, okay, big brother Ben's giving me directions, going into town today. You know what right was? It was up a massive hill. And I'm so arrogant, I'm saying, he's got to be wrong. He doesn't want me walking up a hill. It must be if my back was, if I'm facing the house, then I turn right down the hill, right? It's got to be down the hill. And then I realized, you know what, Davo? Sometimes, even right out of the gate, you got to walk up a massive hill. So, you don't get to pick based on what you want. Want is not part of the equation. I had to get to the subway. It had 0% to do with what I want. You're going to the subway. Going back in the house and crawling back into bed was not an option. If you don't want to go up the hill, then you shouldn't have made plans to go to the subway. Unfortunately, everything you want or need in life is up that hill. So, all right. Anyhow, I wanted to read to you the learning from that. And again, we're showing that you cannot learn Torah without ger. Do you see that? I mean, seriously, if I think that convert is ger, I don't understand 50% of the Torah already. Every parsha has ger stuff in it. If it's convert, which means it's Jew, that means there are no non-Jews. There are only Jews in the world. Is that correct? There's no such thing as a non-Jew, only Jews. And that is how I learn the Torah. Look at my comprehension. So now when you say, hey, Rabbi Katz, I'm this non-Jew, and I live blah, 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 I'm saying, yeah, right, you're probably a lost Jew, and you should convert. I'm inventing stories now. I'm inventing stories because I simply don't know the comprehension to tell you what the Torah says. Now, there are lost Jews, and there are converts, and there are unicorns, and there's lost Ephraimites somewhere. There are things. Okay? Every Jew thinks, wow, because I know Torah so well, I bet you I come from a lost rabbi in my family. That's a huge story. But guess what? Not true. It's wishful thinking. And the reason why it's wishful thinking, because you have mazel, and by definition, you're already coming from a fantastic spot. That's how the world works. Every root has something going on. We just don't, we don't want, Madonna is a wonderful singer, right? But do you know about the bass player in her band, the guy whose name never gets put on the album? No, you don't know that guy. But in music circles, everyone's like, hey, Bob, the bass player? Oh, he's amazing. Yeah. He did an album for Peter Frampton and Elton John and all these people. But no one knows him. Everyone only knows the rock star. It's just not reality. It's the falsehood of the world we live in. So the bottom line is, number one, ger is a reality in Torah. It's 50% of the Torah. It's all the time in Torah. You can't get law without it. You're just not getting anywhere without acknowledging ger. You're going to be off skew. You're going to be limited in your das, limited in your perception. It's just problematic. You follow what I'm saying? And
it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And you have to purposely blind your eyes to say that it's not. Okay. So now we're going to go to that's where I had planned for today. But then when I read Birkas Pinchas, I decided every one of the commentaries that I printed out, which were 22, they were all quoting Sanhedrin. They have blinded their eyes because they don't want to go back and do what I'm telling you now, right? Everyone says, well, I've learned Sanhedrin 59a 500 times. I teach Noahites. Well, guess what? I do too. But I didn't know what I know now then, so you got to open it back up and learn it again. Now that your eyes are open. So I saw everyone was quoting Sanhedrin, and I realized I probably don't know Sanhedrin like I did. So I opened it up today, went over it, and I got some really good stuff. James Rogers' questions going to get answered. And then it's going to leave us with problems. And that is that everything we do today, just like 2 weeks ago, we left loose and not defined. We're going to, again, theorize today. And then I have, it should be the final of it. I have 2 books here that are like Mikros Gedolos type for Talmud. And I'm going to go through them and check my work. So I think it works out. We're going to keep it on the theoretical today. And then next week we'll probably finish off. So it'll be a 4-part meat series at least. And give definitive dinim. Does that sound good to you guys? Okay. So number 1, remember, for those listening along, everything from this point on, everything I said earlier is fact. That was proven. From right now to the end, it's theoretical. And you're going to have to listen to part 4 to find out if we prove the theory. I know for a fact we're going to get an answer and a proof either way. Most likely yes. Since we're dealing with dinim, guessing doesn't count. Good ideas don't count. Pretty sure doesn't count. 99% doesn't count. We need it locked down. I am confident that we're there now. But again, I got the book sitting right here on my table, and we just don't have the time tonight to do it. Otherwise, we would. So I'm gonna introduce the theory, have you think about it, and then we'll come back at least next week. Okay. Now, again, it's just tricky because of this word rabbanan. Here we go, James Rogers. In Sanhedrin 59, in fact, we have it up here? Where are we at?
We do.
I think yeah. So go ahead and read for me Rabbi Hananiah ben Gamliel. Go slow.
They were also commanded not to partake of the blood drawn from a living animal.
Okay, so Rabbi Hananiah ben Gamliel is going to say there's a Noahide law called don't eat the limb of a living animal. Have you guys ever heard of that? Don't eat the limb of a living animal. And Rabbi Hananiah ben Gamliel is going to say, I am not so sure. I think that even the blood you cannot eat. Sound familiar, James Rogers?
Very.
All right, so keep reading.
Our rabbis taught, but flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall you not eat. This prohibits flesh cut from a living animal.
Okay, so he is going James Rogers territory on us. I'm going to keep reading a little bit. Just read on a little further.
Rabbi Hananiah said it also prohibits blood drawn from a living animal. What is his reason? He reads the verse thus, flesh with the life thereof shall you not eat. Blood with the life thereof shall you not eat. But the rabbis maintain that this reading teaches that flesh cut from live reptiles is permitted.
Okay, stop. This again is kicking up all the things we discussed. Is it not, number one, is it not amazing that in 45 minutes of discussion today, we have found literally all previous 5 classes? Do you find that amazing? I find that absolutely amazing. And you see that the 7 laws are fractal. They're all rallying around this, particularly Dinim. And you see Ger was the catalyst of the whole thing. Right? Meat plus Ger equals. I just find that amazing. Now, again, this is theoretical. I'm pretty sure it works out, but keep that in mind. The Talmud wants to say like this. James Rogers in Parshas Noach, do we get the prohibition about the so-called don't eat the limb of a living animal?
Apparently, yes. That's
and didn't you want to say last week that that was a blood-related episode?
Well, that it's I guess you could say blood-related. I never really saw it completely that way.
You wanted to mention the blood. Noahide should not eat blood. That's what you told me last week.
Poured into the ground, I think, was the part that kind of clinched it for me. Okay,
so now here's what we're saying. How many of you guys heard my Parsha shir last night at the wall? Couple of you guys? So my whole thing about Pshat and Pshuto? Okay, Pshuto is not reality Torah. It is the obvious realm of Torah. The example I gave last night, just give me some quick ones here. Did Zimri and Cosby do immorality in the Parsha? Type 1. And they did it in the tent, right? Type 1. What is a tent? When it says the tent, what is a tent? Isn't it like a house or a dwelling place? Well, that's an obvious answer. And that's a stupid answer. Why is it a stupid answer? Because if you were going to do immorality, would you take her home to mom? Just bring her home to the house and have her over for dinner? No. Would you take her out to the field where there's nobody around? Oh, so maybe you would pitch a tent. Think about that? Maybe you'd pitch a tent? So when the Torah says he took her to the tent, the Torah means it quite literally. Meaning it's not just, a proper home. No, they're doing dodgy stuff. They're going to a tent. So do you see how Pshuto is the obvious answer? And it's not correct. It's just the obvious answer. But the Pshat is the deeper revelation. You cop this now? Pshat and Pshuto? One is obvious and one is like, wow, that's really heavy. It's so obvious but not obvious. Okay. When Noah's verse says, don't, whatever the language is, it's not literally eat the living animal, right? It's like don't consume the blood and the meat, right? The rabbis, and on the rabbinic level, they are learning that there's 2 kinds of animals. There are animals whose blood is a part of their meat, and animals that blood is separate from the meat. Have you ever heard of a rat? When you eat a rat, you are eating the blood with the guts because they're inseparable. That's why it's a highly impure animal. It's shkutzim. It's a sheretz. It's disgusting. Right? It's not something that you want to cook on a grill. Have you ever heard of a cow? Have you ever heard of a steak? All right, steak is not rats. You get rid of the blood, you still have something left over called meat. And it is not blood. It is something different. By Noah's verse, it says, don't eat the blood with the meat. That is excluding a rat. Because you cannot, that the way it's phrased, a rat would be impossible. You understand why? it doesn't fit. You can't have the prohibition of the blood and the meat. It's already there, one thing. Right. Has to have meat intangible without the blood. So therefore, do we learn the limb of a living animal from Noah's verse? James Rogers. Do we learn limb of a living animal from Noah?
I don't, from that one verse alone, I would say no, not all the way.
No, we don't, folks. We learn don't eat a rat. And it's Lafib Shuto. You know why it's Lafib Shuto? Because now I'm going to say don't eat the limb of a living animal. Lafib Shuto. The blood and the meat together is simply, in vulgar terms, living animal. Don't eat the limb of a living animal. That is Lafib Shuto. That means it's obvious and not reality. Otherwise, I'm afraid you're going to rip the leg off a donkey and eat it. That's just not happening, is it? So it becomes like the large, swooping, obvious pshuto. Therefore, where do we learn don't eat the limb of a living animal? That which is basically allowed for Israel is allowed for the Noahide. Again, a nice way of saying the Noahide is to not eat blood. Not eat blood.
And you can't separate blood from meat. There's no such thing with a rat.
That's right.
Okay.
So then, are you telling me you're Jewish, James?
No.
What's the difference between me and you? We said this in the first class, and we're going to see a major principle. If you do a sin of capital punishment, you get killed. If I do it, I'm put to death. Stoning versus sword, correct?
Mm-hmm.
How about the animals? How does a Jew eat a steak? I shecht my animal, correct?
Correct.
And then it becomes kosher no matter what, even to the point where Johnny Ackum can eat that steak with me, correct?
Correct.
So when I shecht my cow, the blood comes out immediately. That blood contains the nefesh of that animal. That's called dam nefesh. The Torah warns heavily, Devo, do not eat that blood. You cop? Even if the animal's still alive, I can eat the animal. The main issue is slaughter it and don't eat the nefesh. That's all. Everything else is rabbinic and a warning to not be like Johnny Ackum. Now, Johnny Ackum's world is different. Why? Because he's not given shechita. The animal simply must die. How do we kill an animal in the non-shechting world? Let's just say you put a bullet to its head. So you didn't slit the throat. So the dam nefesh doesn't come out. James Rogers, how do you kill an animal in your world?
Well, I would do it as close to, if I would watch a Jew and do it as close to what he did as possible. The most painless, quickest way.
But the bottom line is, when do you know if you can eat your animal? I can eat mine as soon as the neck is slit and the blood squirts out. When can you eat your steak?
When we know it's all out of the animal and it's in the ground.
There you go. But not necessarily the blood, because the way that you kill your animals, you might not actually have to drain the blood. So what happens is we have to make sure that the nefesh leaves your animal. You understand that?
Yes.
So if we shoot in the head, whatever it is, I know we're supposed to be humane here. I'm just speaking kind of whatever. It might be a long, slow, suffering death. Yes, I'm aware of the fact that James Rogers is right, and it should be a painless death and quick for the animal's sake. But in the world we live in, it doesn't always happen. It's not required by law. The animal can't suffer. But the point is, the nefesh kind of just leaks out. Right? Well, I mean, obviously, you're saying, to try to do it the best way possible. But in Bediavad terms, the nefesh just kind of lingers and leaks out until it's dead. Once that animal's dead, then the blood inside is no longer dam nefesh. It's just blood. Blood is only real blood on dam nefesh. Okay. So there's a non-Jewish steak and a Jewish steak. One has dam nefesh extracted. One is where the vapor, the nefesh, the spiritual, leaks out. Like the vapor just goes out, like exhale. Same thing, just two different ways of going about it. Stoning and sword. So what we have is there... before I say that. Now, James Rogers, if you don't kill your animal correctly, and now you rip the leg off the donkey, did you eat the limb of a living animal?
If I ate it while the animal was still living, yes.
Right. Even and what was it? Was it based on the blood or the meat?
The blood, because I would say because of the blood. The blood had not the soul had not left the animal. That's what I would say.
It's the blood, but as far as I'm aware, maybe I'm wrong, but you cannot get to that blood unless you rip the leg off. Correct? I mean, you're going to have to rip something off to get to the blood. We call the leg a spoon. See what I'm saying? You'd have to rip it off as a spoon to get to the blood. Meaning, if you let the soul leak out, the blood is no longer called blood. We call that juice. So now you rip the leg off. There's no crime. All the more so if you do it normal. What do we prove? That the blood is the Torah prohibition for the Jew, for the Akum. That which is permitted to the Jew is permitted to the Noahide. The blood is the problem. The meat is Lafi Pshuto. And the reason why we explain it Lafi Pshuto is because there's two different ways to kill an animal. And the way that an animal is killed in Johnny Akum's world, it's easiest to call it limb of a living animal. By a Jew, it's best to call it the blood, when really they're the same principles. One or two.
Yes. Okay.
So I'm 99% on this. I just want to run it through my books next week. Okay, but I'm pretty much convinced. It's an amazing thought, is it not? I mean, it really brings it all home. Do you feel better, James? Does that suit where that's if I remember correctly, you were going there last week.
Yes, this is yes.
Yeah.
one.
And then obviously the Noahide can be rabbinic and drain the blood, into the ground from his killing of the animal, right? Obviously, as you're saying, to make it the most is proper, painless, and holy experience, because there is to the Akum elevation of the meat. And we see gear is part of the formula. Okay, now that's right. So now we're going to get into Shabbos. Okay, it's the same page. Let me just where are you at here? I'm going to get rid of that. Let me just where are you at here? I'm going to get rid of that and have you read further. Let's go here. Where are we at here? Where are we at? Sanhedrin 64. All right. All right, go ahead and read, James. It's coming up.
Are we on? Okay, but the rabbis maintain that the verse teaches that blood of arteries with which life goes out is also forbidden as blood. Okay.
New topic. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Why is it first enjoined upon the sons of Noah?
1 second. Yes, Justin B. That's correct. You're not. This is my favorite Tovia Singer line, right? About Jesus' blood atones, and then Tovia says, "No, the Torah is not talking about Jesus." I think it's funny because those verses in 17:11 in Vayikra, that has nothing to do with the church at all. So I don't know why the counter missionaries throw it in. What the Torah says is the blood is the atonement on the altar, and that is the answer here. The blood is holy, because the soul in the blood is holy. Therefore, you do not eat the blood, and with the soul, you don't benefit from the soul. That soul is not yours. That soul belongs to God. That soul belongs on the altar. So you are to return that soul to God. That is not yours. You don't touch it. Johnny Akum, in the real idolatrous sense, they like to eat the souls. And that's why the Torah says, like I told you before, the rabbinic prohibition is to distance anything remotely close to Johnny Hardcore Akum of eating the soul. So even where the soul doesn't go out, but it's a kosher slaughter, we don't want you eating it because it's too much resembling hardcore Johnny Akum, right? The soul belongs on the altar. And that's the real shot of 1711. And this is why I went ballistic when I found out the counter missionaries are trying to say to the church, this is a side point, they're trying to tell the church, this cannot be Jesus because the verse didn't have Jesus in mind. Really? Really? The verse didn't have Jesus in mind? How about the verse had nothing to do with Jesus at all? Nothing to do with it at all. It had to do with a totally different deal. So you know what the answer to the church is? There's no dialogue. You're saying the verse has to do with Jesus. Well, you could say Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck. What do you mean? It's different planets. We're talking about don't eat blood, and you're talking about does the verse belong to different planets. It drives me crazy about the counter-missionary approach. Nothing to do with anything. You tell the Christian you're on planet Mars, and it has nothing to do with anything. Go ahead.
Okay. As the dictum of Rabbi Jose Chanina, for Rabbi Jose Chanina said...
Yeah. Wait. Where you at? No.
I just read that top line.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Am I good?
Yeah.
Okay. Every precept which was given to the sons of Noah and repeated...
So that was stuff. That was at the time, we'll call that the time of Enoch, okay? That which was handed over to Enoch. I mean, all the Noahide before Sinai. Go ahead.
And repeated at Sinai was...
And those same laws of Enoch were told over to Moses. You going?
Here we go. Okay. Can I read this? That which was given to the sons of Noah, but not repeated at Sinai.
Wait a minute. You got to stop. You got to slow down.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Every precept which was given to the sons of Noah and repeated at Sinai was meant for both heathens and Israelites.
Stop. That means it was given to Enoch. It was given to Moses. It's for everybody. Next.
That which was given to the sons of Noah, but not repeated at Sinai.
It was given to Enoch, but Moses never heard it.
Was meant for the Israelites, but not for the heathens.
Then that's a sign that was for Moses, and it got stripped away from Enoch. The Talmud is asking, is it this or is it that? It doesn't know yet. Keep going.
Now the only law thus commanded to the children of Noach and not repeated at Sinai was the prohibition of the sinew that shrank, nervus ischiaticus, and in accordance with Rabbi Judah's view.
Keep going.
The master said, every precept which was given to the sons of Noah
Enoch's generation, keep going,
and repeated at Sinai,
Moses,
was meant for both Noachites and Israelites.
Moses and Moses' people and Enoch's people after Sinai. Keep going.
On the contrary, since it was repeated at Sinai, should we not assume it to be meant for Israel only? Since idolatry was repeated at Sinai, and we find that the Noachides were punished for practicing it, we must conclude that it was meant for both.
So the Talmud is at a standstill. If it was taught to the Enoch people, and then it was taught at Moses on Sinai, today James and David stand, is it my law, or is it our law, or is it James's law? See the question? How do you deal with Sinai? Okay, where did we? Did you get to the end? Yeah.
No, for that second full paragraph we just finished.
Okay, so read.
Okay.
Now the Talmud is going to answer the question. Go ahead.
Okay. That which was given to the sons of Noah, but not repeated at Sinai.
No, and repeated. Wait, no. Wait, which paragraph did you finish?
On the screen here, the third complete paragraph down is where I started.
Just now?
Or I guess I'm on the second paragraph, aren't I? The master said...
No, you did that one.
I did that one, okay.
So go ahead.
That which was given to the sons of Noah, but not repeated at Sinai, was meant for the Israelites, but not for the heathens. On the contrary, since it was not repeated at Sinai, should we not assume that it was meant for the Noachides and not for Israel?
By the way, you do see there's a difference between Noahide and heathens. Heathens are idolaters, Ovdei Chochavim. So you already see a difference here. Keep going.
There is nothing permitted to an Israelite, yet forbidden to a heathen. Is there
That's
not?
our thing. That's what I looked up. So we're saying Johnny Akum. We're not talking Ben Noach. We're not even talking Ger. Johnny Akum. If I can do it, David the Jew can do it. Johnny Akum can do it. All right. So that's the thing that we ended last week. So we looked up today, and then everyone said to go to Sanhedrin. This is where they sent me. Here's where we're at. Go ahead.
But what of a beautiful woman?
The Yafa Toar mitzvah, right? We in these parshiot that we're in now, we're going to go and capture women in a war, Pinchas the Cohen, and we're going to bring them back, and we're actually going to make them ger. They don't tell you that here, but that's what they are. They become ger, even to a Cohen, and they're allowed. So Israel was allowed women, and go ahead. Is Johnny Akum allowed to go into, what's that called? The Yazizis? What are they called again? The Yadizi? What is this? ISIS and the Yazizi? I don't know how to say it. But is ISIS justified in taking those women that we see on CNN? Go ahead.
There it is because the heathens were not authorized to conquer.
ISIS cannot go in and take the Yadizi women, and Israel making a war of mitzvah can make Ger Toshav in Syria, and if they don't accept, we take them back to Israel, make them Ger Toshav, and their women become proper Ger. You got that? Israel is given permission to wage war for the sake of godliness. ISIS cannot claim the same. Therefore, we are permitted to make their women ger and marry their women. They can't. And the answer is not shaykh. It's not shaykh for them. It is shaykh for us. God gave that capability to Israel. Now remember, that's for Johnny Akum. Ger are part of this, of Israel. Ger are what we're hoping to accomplish by waging war. The world should get rid of idolatry, but just not through war. The Ger got it not through war. The Ger got it because he recognized God. So the Ger would actually war against the country of ISIS. That was Egypt, right? It was the Ger in Egypt fought against the Egyptians. You don't taunt the Ger. You were a Ger in a foreign land. There were Ger there. Okay, now that's all for you, James Rogers. My turn. And I'm going to explain it like this. Can a non-Jew keep Shabbos? This is the Tosfos commentary here. So they're going to give an example like this. Everything, and this is where I was 2 weeks ago, if you remember. The Jew keeps Shabbos, type 1. Now remember, we talk about Enoch's generation, right? Enoch was not allowed to keep Shabbos. Enoch received prophecy. One day there's going to be Israel, and Israel will be given the heter, or the allowance of Shabbos, correct? So Israel comes to Sinai and receive at Sinai what Enoch wasn't. Thereby Israel's commanded in Shabbos. The Rambam says by Johnny Akum, do not make Shabbos on Tuesday or we're going to kill you. Even though it's not literal death, that's what he says, correct? Rambam Hilchos Melachim 10:9. Now, it's not literal death there, number one. That's what already 90% of the Noahide rabbis out there saying a goy that keeps Shabbos is chayav misa. Not even according to the Rambam is it literal. But okay, now we got that. So, can Johnny Akum keep Shabbos on Tuesday? No, Rambam said so. Talmud said so. So here's what we're going to say. If a Jew keeps Shabbos on Tuesday, am I punished? No, I'm not. Am I allowed to do it though? Can I just make Shabbos on Tuesday? No. But if I do it, I'm not in trouble. I'm just called stupid. Johnny Akum, you are an idolater. And, how many of us like the Messianics? How many of you like the seat on the belt loop and all these funny things we see? It's a mockery, is it not? So the Rambam knows that, the Talmud knows it, and it says, look, Johnny Akum, please don't put seat on the belt loop, okay? Don't keep Shabbos on Tuesday. So if Johnny Akum is prevented from Shabbos on Tuesday, can Johnny Akum then keep Shabbos? Right, 100% no. If he can't keep it on Tuesday, all the more so, he won't get to do it the right way. Type 1. So now, the Tosfos gives an analogy. There's a law that a baby is being born, and we've seen babies kill their parents, correct? The birth kills the mother. If we see that the baby's going to kill the mom, can we kill the baby? Yes, we can. Now, what if the baby's head is out and one arm and mom is going down? Who do we kill? The baby or mom? We kill mom. Because we say that the kid has come to the world. He's already here. Mom's already gone. So too with Shabbos. I don't want you keeping Shabbos. If I see your head come out, I'm going to chop it off. But if you've already got your head out, you've already skipped over Tuesday, now you keep Shabbos. That which is allowed for Israel is allowed for Johnny Akum. What do you think about that? Pretty nice, isn't it? So there we got Ger, Kohen Gadol, Torah. We got Shabbos, and the Shabbos comes from this law. The law comes from the meat comes from Ger. And the meat and the Ger and the Jew are one level. That does conclude today's learning. So now my job is to double check Sanhedrin 59a, the meat and the Shabbos. We already proved the Torah through our friend Birkas Pinchas. So a Ger can learn Torah. Ger is not a goy. We proved the Ger and the meat. All we need to prove now is James Rogers' meat, blood, Ger issue and Shabbos on Tuesday. When we nail down those last two things, pun intended, we will have concluded, 7 classes. And I think it's pretty incredible. I mean, we've really seen a fractal. We've seen Ger part of all of it. It's Dinim. Dinim revisits all other 6. I would say Din plus Ger equals laws of Noah. What do you think about that? Dinim plus Ger equals Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. And as we said, Dinim is a portal between Johnny Occam's 7 laws and Bob the Ger. With Dinim, what Ger is it's the flavor in the Dinim. You understand that? Imagine a tube. And in the tube, there's liquid. Liquid is Ger. You can oscillate between Jewish Dinim and Johnny Occam Dinim through the Ger liquid. You understand? You pick the frequency and tone of where you want your Dinim to go. Din Yisrael, Din Occam, it's up to you. Right? So Shabbos is not for you, then you're not a baby being born and you just don't keep Shabbos. Shabbos is for you, then do it Din Yisrael, you're not doing it on Tuesday, and that's the Ger of the 10 Commandments. See how there's a Ger every time? Right on location. 10 Commandments, Naman, the meat. It's perfect. You don't need Ger every verse. You don't need Ger 1,000 times. You just need Ger at the crucial arteries of the Dinim and Noahide law. And we see every single time there's a Ger Torah there to function as a contrast and portal and flavor of where the law goes in the spectrum from Din Yisrael all the way down to Johnny Occam to where Johnny Occam can elevate. All right, so this was Dinim number 6. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I know I did. I know it started off pretty tough. If you go back and listen, I did it in Hebrew, but where I spoke in English, you can see I highlighted all the previous classes because the guy that wrote the commentary, he did what we did. He took all that stuff, tried to figure it out, and he figured it out only by the Ger who learns Torah is like a Kohen Gadol, Ger and not Goy, that which was permitted for Israel, permitted to the Occam. He's using the same tools we are. He just copied and pasted and put it all together in a different order than we did. And that's, on one foot, that's what I've been doing for the last 5 years. Nothing different. Taking the sources, putting them together, and showing the same picture in different ways, highlighting different revelations. And the more we get into Ger Torah, I'm not the first one to do it. I'm not the last one to do it. It's a known thing. Not everybody in the world's a goy. There's a Ger, there's a goy, there's everything in between. There's a Jew, there's a convert. They're not labels. It's just a matter of where you're at in your elevation or being real, being you. Every law pretty much is going to ask the question. It is a journey. You know, at the end of the day, if you push the law deep enough, it's going to say Jew and not Occam, Jew even Occam, Jew and Ger. It's just how it is. At the end of the day, the Torah is for mankind. And the Noahide Dinim is special because it hunts out the laws of Noah, and it only can do that by Ger Torah, which pops up with perfect regularity by the divine providence of God. So that's all for this week. Stay tuned for Dinim 7, and it's going to be proving, hopefully, today's revelations, and it could be we kick up more dirt. We'll see. But we have at least one more class to go.